Can I tell you something? That's the title of a great book.
Yeah.
What do you have to Google to get that? You know? So,
Often what I think, though.
you know, I made a T-shirt for them sometimes. If you wanted to make money, you let me know. I'll start a T-shirt company with just the lines I say. Whenever I'm by myself, I Google me. It's a T-shirt. They sold them in Boston, though.
You did not have
No, I don't want to get in trouble because you get blamed. Because I have.
You get blamed for a lot of stuff.
I do.
I blame you for everything.
I thank you.
Openly.
Backstabbing. Grandmother Collier. In 1918, she died, leaving my dad and his 3 siblings alone. And his father took them, and which is what they did, and gave them to his sister, and then they were raised in a family of 13. But they were always treated a lot like lesser thans, right? Because they weren't the favorite. They were the add-ons. So my father and his brother died way early of colon cancer. Early childhood trauma, right? Holding everything in, knowing you're getting treated less than. And both he and his brother, and then my dad became, you know, big military guy. And what I was trying to express to everybody was that Capra had 11 rounds of people all on his ward dying, and he lived. He lived, which made him the inveterate optimist forever and ever and ever, and why he made such great, funny, happy, all-American films. Now, if you go back and watch Capra films, because as a writer and a person who knows good films can be from medicine, Capra's films were medicine for America. So much so that Martin Scorsese, who loved him, and Scorsese's films are dark, you know. He goes, I've come to a conclusion there really never was in America. There really never was in America. There was just a Frank Capra. And he created the America that we thought we lived in from film. Isn't that an amazing thing? I mean, pretty intense, right? Yeah.
Todd, we're good on all audio? Awesome. Well, you ready? Start
Always,
this
yeah.
thing off?
Yeah,
Prepare it all.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, there's
look
no
at.
preparation.
Well, I don't know. We
Embodiment.
had what do we have? 2-3 hours of prepping for this interview.
Oh, yeah. We've been up since... So welcome to We Are the Remedy, where each week we highlight a person from the community who embodies the idea of people helping people. We raise awareness of good news and broadcast to the world more good news. We deliver messages of creativity, humor, dreams, visions, and solutions to today's most pressing problems. We provide a global platform to connect people helping people, inspiring them to give back to their community. My name is Trevor Henley. I'm here with Michael Pritchard, and today our guest is Andrew Vargas. And
Delman.
Andrew Vargas Delman.
Yes.
Two of them in there.
One is Argentinian, though. Okay, here we go.
So, Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about your connection to Andrew, and we'll...
I watch this inspiring. Well, I come across people all the time in my work, and I was up at the courthouse, and we were having folks speak, and Andrew got up and gave a brilliant soliloquy about mental health in our community and why it was so urgently important that we talk to young people. He's a mentor, he's a teacher, he's a humble guy, but he is a Fulbright scholar, and he's also a graduate of Johns Hopkins University back east in Baltimore area, and he's extremely emotionally wise and brilliant. I got him to do 2 really brilliant speeches. They're only 5 minutes long, but you can see one is on loneliness, the other one is on connectedness. I'm sure he's going to tell you the other ones that he's been doing, but they're brilliant, almost poetic, almost great literature speeches, just talking to his generation of young people about what we knew to get connected and also to overcome loneliness. And when I met him, I thought, I got to get this guy on our show and talking to him about positivity in the community and how we can help the next generation of leaders, which he is a member of the group of, the folks that can really help us guide ways to help the world get stronger, wiser, and more emotionally intelligent. So, Andrew, can you?
Right.
That was good. Tell me what you learned about about loneliness and its impact on our culture, not just here in our local community, but globally. What you think we can do to help with that?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, the main thing to keep in mind with loneliness is that we believe that other people are more connected and happier than they really are.
Right.
So loneliness is something that we carry internally and believe we're the only person carrying around, when in reality, many people really are feeling this. And so there's kind of a paradox, like, I am feeling lonely on my own, assuming that everyone else is all good.
Right.
And everyone else is feeling the same way.
Right. So here we are in an epidemic of, when I was a kid growing up, there was 58,000 folks between 65 and 75 lost in the war in Vietnam. And we had protests, man. We had protests all over America, millions of people on the streets. But we have lost, in the past 3 years, we have lost 200,000 people to opioid overdose. No protest. But doesn't it speak of isolation? Doesn't that disconnection speak of that isolation that you're talking about in your generation? How do we help you get to that next generation and talk to them about this loneliness? And why do you know that it's so important?
So, knowing that it's so important, first of all, we look at things like opioid use and addiction levels. And we look at mental health statistics, and you take a certain population, like the adolescent population, just statistically, the incidences of addiction, of drug use, of alcohol use, of suicide.
30% increase in suicides in America in the past year.
Wow.
So, I mean, those are some of the indicators we could look at to objectively say, well, this is clearly an issue that has substantial repercussions. I mean, you can also, if you speak with the teenagers that I work with, that you
what are you finding in them? The pressures from grades and all that. What are the pressures on them?
Well, so, I mean, their experience is very complex, right? And on one hand, they're managing the academic requirements, which are a world in themselves. And then you have social issues that accompany just being a teenager and also being a teenager in this era.
Right.
So there are a couple different, areas to address and issues to take a look at. But what I would say is concerning is the notion that, again, that I'm living this on my own.
Right.
That I'm the only person experiencing this, that I should somehow be above this.
Right.
Or know all the answers.
Yeah.
I should know all the answers. I should have my career already figured out. I should already have a 5.0 GPA.
So they're highly self-pressured as well.
Yes.
They're parent pressured, they're society pressured, but self-pressured.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is that from?
Well, I mean, we're here to talk about social media.
Right.
Obviously, social media plays into a lot of this.
So competition.
Even
on that.
Yes. But, I mean, I would also say, I think it's a mix. I think it's a mix of both cultural norms,
right?
Where we have very high expectations. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting thing about different countries. For instance, Denmark has sort of surprisingly low expectations in a way. When their survey is done of people from Denmark compared to other countries, like the expectation of riches or wealth or status, they just don't climb as high, right? In terms of their expectations.
Right.
So on one hand, I think we have this idea in our heads that things should be perfect.
Creating a dream world.
There's a dream world.
A bubble.
Like, you have this perfect career, and that we watch movies, and you have the struggle is until marriage, and then like marriage starts and the movie ends, as if the problems ended there.
Right.
But the reality is,
Just sticking next to.
Yeah. We have these movies where the build-up and all the drama is sort of in the development of, let's say, the engagement of the relationship, and then you have a marriage where all of a sudden now everything's good.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean,
like it solves all the problems
like it solves
and issues. Right.
There's just what we see is a negating of the emotional difficulty.
Wow.
Of all sorts of aspects of life.
Right. I met this wonderful young man when he was a kid in high school, and he was brilliant, emotionally brilliant then when he was at San Rafael High, and he was on our show called Saving Our Schools from Hate and Violence, and it was epic, and I've kept in contact with him over the years through community work, and what's the difference between that, what you were living through, because you didn't have the technology stuff that we have. What's the difference that you feel that he's talking about?
Well, I think it's ultimately all the same. It goes back to your connectedness, right? And there's just a different platform now, which is the social media and the society pressures of exceeding in school and getting your 5.0. And I think mine was cumulative 5.0 for 4 years. Yeah. Well, now they're doing like 4.2, 4.8. I think they're...
Yeah, but guys, you don't have to do that if you have money and you can influence. Okay, that was the comedic part of me.
No.
All right.
I mean, I think it all goes around to connectedness. And I remember on that show, and it was just, I was bullied growing up. I remember spending most of my grade school lunches running from a group of 12 of my peers. It really is about connecting and reaching out to people and, connecting with people of like mind.
Is that loneliness, is it to both of you, this is what I ask because I'm a senior, I'm a 70-year-old. I just ask you, is that what are you smirking about?
I know, I still never believe it. Still never believe it.
What is it about this bullying it's following them home on the internet?
Right.
Not when you were a kid, you had the bullies chase you around school. Now they're at home, they're on the internet. Right. They're posting pictures of you up from the gym locker room. They're talking about your sisters, your cousins. I mean, it's the viciousness is almost incomprehensible. And yesterday, a 10-year-old, 9-year-old was beaten to death in his school.
What?
Yeah, yesterday, beaten to death in his school by another student. And so I just wonder, what can we? Because I know, and I mean, I don't mean to depress you.
No.
I mean, it's just...
It's reality.
It's exactly. And that's why, we in our wealthy, privileged communities sometimes have a local bird called the ostrich where we bury our head in the sands and pay no attention and think things will get better that way. That's not the case. Mm-hmm. So we have to know these things, and that's why I stay abreast of this stuff. Mm-hmm. But what can we do? What are things that you saw from your generation that started the work and from your generation that started the work?
Well, I think to speak to that point about, say, cyberbullying.
Right.
What's so problematic about that is that there's no longer this delineation between, threatening school environment and now safe home environment.
Right.
Assuming that existed for this person, which obviously for many people doesn't. But for someone to develop self-confidence and being able to express themselves emotionally and being able to develop their creativity and their individuality, there need to be safe spaces. Right.
Wow.
Accepting. Right?
And that's why what you do, mentoring, builds a nice safe space for youngsters to get enhanced with one single mentor teacher that does that. What do you notice that does for the individual students that you do encourage and help?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is relief of pressure.
Right. It's a sanctuary. It's a chapel to escape from...
express your concerns, express your opinions,
Right.
Because when you look into, empathetic listening,
for
instance, often someone will feel unheard when we're listening in a problem-solving way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm listening and just immediately giving suggestions about how to fix it. When in reality, the human need is, I want to be understood. And I want to feel felt. And in the moment of feeling felt, the energy can kind of dissipate, and now you can be at a state where you're able to problem solve.
I told you he was a genius, didn't I? I mentioned that before, the whole thing about Fulbright Scholar. because I was from Southeast Missouri. I was a fully not bright scholar.
Right.
But how do you, and how did you, how did you find it? You know, when you're hearing this, do you feel lucky that you escaped that?
I just don't even comprehend. I mean, the social media bullying. I mean, I know it's there, but and this is how I've dealt with it in my life, is I just don't believe it. And I mean, not that I'm ignorant to it.
You build the spiritual firewall against it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when I was growing up, I had my 2 or 3 close friends, and I spent time with them, and that's how I got to build the relationships and the friends. And then I didn't have to worry so much about the bullying or why they were doing it. And of course, growing up, I had no idea. I thought it was me was the reason why they were bullying.
Right.
You know, you learn that it's not me, it's them. They're trying to find an outlet to reach and connect to someone else, and the only way they know how is to negatively impact someone else in order to get the attention that they think they desire.
Right.
And so I don't know how that translates to social media and all of the bullying online, but I can only assume it's the same thing. Like, I know we post stuff to hope we get likes, to hope we get people that we have no idea or we never connect with in real life.
Yeah.
To like us or like our post or like our photo or to get recognition. And so I'm assuming by the way social media works and the bullying is the same thing as going back to when I grew up, when there wasn't social media.
Right.
It's literally someone seeking attention and seeking confirmation from others in one way or the other.
Approval, right? And there's a dopamine hit in this stuff, the likes. There's a dopamine hit. You can like a rat going back to the sugar to get more. Oh, yeah, look how many likes I have. And what's the impact on the human brain to that? What's the impact of that stuff to this generation of kids?
Well,
looking for approval there.
Certainly, like a tendency towards immediate instant gratification,
right?
Right, and then everything else culturally needs to accelerate to keep up with that.
Wow.
And like
that's why they're impatient.
Right. Yeah. All these forces are contributing to create this impatience. But so I think with
that's so insightful. I mean, because as an older person, I don't know. I'm like, why are they in such a hurry all the time to get this, to get that? You know, when I watch people like this brilliant young Ocasio-Cortez, she's brilliant. I mean, she's brilliant, but you know, they're attacking her and she's looking for approvals, and she's of a generation of folks, that's what you do. Right. You look for approval from your generation, and she is brilliant. There is no doubt. I have never seen anybody, you know, she's emotionally brilliant as well. And she's making points to both left and right. And that's the kind of provided leadership we need that has inherent emotional wisdom, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
How do we help them? I don't know. That's the one thing, because I'm old.
Well, and the other question that goes to me is, you know, let's speak to the bigger term of millennial. Like, why is the millennial so purpose-driven now? Why, or what does that mean? Like, for people that are in business, I mean, I work with a lot of business people, and they go, yeah, we're trying to attract millennials to work with us. Yeah. Well, one, what's a millennial? I'm pretty sure it's a person. Yeah. So first you're trying to attract people, but why don't you tell us more about millennials so I can understand.
Yeah.
So our old guy over here can
What do you
understand.
think? Yeah. Great question.
So we want to distinguish between millennials
every once in a while.
Gen Z, right? So that'd be millennials. I think they're up to the 1990, somewhere in the 90s, I can't remember. But for instance, kids who are in high school now would not be denominated millennials. Like, I'm a millennial, I'm 26.
Yeah.
Right? So just distinguishing those two groups. I think in terms of being purpose-driven, one is having a sense, like an acute awareness of the global issues. So the larger your vision over global issues, I think the larger you're called to take action at that scale. Because
you realize it's not just about your cute little bubble
that
you live in every day.
There's so much imagery and so much dialogue around like these massive global, climate change, environmental issues that it's basically impossible to be unconscious of the fact that the Earth is an interconnected ecosystem, environmentally and socially. So I think that has something to do with why we're so sort of globally focused. But then that plays into these very high expectations for ourselves. So millennials, someone in their 20s will be frustrated because we're so conscious of the pathologies at the global level that we're frustrated by our inability as an individual to deeply impact that.
Got it.
But we don't see that the individual impact is what you can create.
Right, is part of that overall.
And then this impacts business, because what you just said, and I don't know whether it was a millennial who created the Gillette ads about men being more responsible to being kind and thoughtful and compassionate, and because they were more globally aware, they're taking the whole global thing, just like you said, and they're saying, hey, folks, we can be nicer to each other, not just here in America, but everywhere around the world. We can be better dads, better husbands, better brothers, better uncles. And that's probably a good impact to have that conversation. But how do we have that conversation with both your generations? I mean, for me, I'm old school, man. I'm of a generation of the 60s, right? And I was raised by a World War II guy. He was tough and he was determined, and he said leadership-oriented things. When it came to World War II, this is Stephen Ambrose, the great historian, said, when it came to World War II, we sent our best, they did their best, and the world was saved from evil. Very amazing, right? And so that's who raised me. A bunch of men and my uncles and cousins and brothers raised in this tradition of being defenders of freedom and strength and courage and community unity, firemen, cops, military people, nurses, teachers, doctors, completely gathered. But now how do we get to this? Because my fear is, with this level of 30% increase in suicides, we're going to lose a lot of young leaders who are trying, a lot of women and men who are trying desperately, and they're vulnerable. And they need us to help them find ways and pathways to a stronger, wiser community and world, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally the loneliness has to do with feeling separate from other people.
Yes.
And again, carrying this sort of backpack and this burden on my own. So thinking that I'm the only one dealing with this, or thinking that I need to resolve this problem on my own. And so in my experience, both personally and with the people that I've mentored and worked with, getting into community and sharing genuinely what's happening on an emotional level.
Yeah.
there
it is, yeah.
Sharing genuinely what's happening on an emotional level. Again, like we're talking about, you can't really problem solve when someone is emotionally blocked and knotted up.
Right.
And unable to move forward. You can't problem solve in that spot. There has to be a clearing in which this person can express what's actually going on.
Right.
So to that end, I think dealing with the loneliness issue begins with creating spaces, both digitally and physically, where emotional self-expression is allowed in a safe way.
Why is that so important? And I'm 1,000% with you. Why is that so important, Andrew?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I mean, you look at the human brain and how it developed over time, and we are fundamentally emotional creatures that happen to have an intellectual apparatus on top of it. But we are emotionally driven, and the first and foremost need that we have to fulfill is survival, which means being in community. Right. As a child, we can't survive on our own.
Right.
So first and foremost is community. And if we're lacking community and lacking a sense of belonging, then all the intellectual pursuits and all the satisfying our needs
inconsequential.
It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that feeds to the whole why we buy so much stuff and why we feel like we need to fill our voids with outside things, when really all we just need is a connected handshake, a smile, a reason.
Eye contact.
A reason to converse with someone else.
I had a homeless guy the other day, and he goes, "You realize you're the first eye contact I've had in 4 months?" And I went, "Oh."
Yeah. Right.
You know, first eye contact I've had in 4 months. And And people go, and so when I was walking away, I was like, gee, I wonder why he would wind up homeless.
Right.
Homeless. And Robert Frost's line is, home is a place you go where they have to let you in. Folks, America and the world need homes, not houses, homes. And a home is someplace where you go where they have to let you in. Frost was a genius, like these two knuckleheads. I mean, these two wonderful men are. But when I no longer mentor these. Rotary travels the world. As you have Trevor's gone to places where our physicians from Rotary, they do incredible work on children with cleft palates, and they save their lives. They don't just save their lives; they give them a life.
Give them opportunity.
Yeah, for a life, right? And you've seen this, and both of you have traveled internationally, so. You've been around the world, both of you, you know. And why is it so important to do that too as well?
Well, I think it makes sense. It starts here at home. It
Right.
starts with, I'm an eternal optimist.
Right.
That's how I live my life.
Right.
I've always lived my life. But it's also okay, and I've learned this over the years, and even in high school, was to be able to let people know where I'm struggling or where I have an issue.
Why is it so important to do that, Trev?
For many reasons. One, I find an answer,
Right.
usually.
Yeah.
But two, I realize that you may have the same answer, or the same problem. You may have the same problem.
Got it.
You've experienced it before. I mean, being old, you've experienced a lot of things that we will go through. So going to people that are our mentors or our
Right.
elders or even our peers have experienced the same things in many different ways, and also very much the same ways.
Right.
So they have experience to be able to answer it. And to be able to go international and travel internationally, you see that it's no different.
Right.
You see that the problems are the same. It's people that people need help, and people are willing to help, and there's always ways.
Compassion doesn't have a zip code.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or a state code,
or global code, and there's no borders, there's no flags.
Code.
Yeah.
So to that point about being able to share with other people what's going on, I think part of that is because underlyingly we are all these unblemished, perfect, like innocent children that just ended up with experiences, painful experiences where we felt like we needed to hide. But children, you watch them, it's clear they're being in their nature, and they're just expressing whatever comes up. And that's where we started, and that's what we are. And so I think when you are communicating and sharing with other people the reality of what you're experiencing, it taps into them remembering, like, oh wow, like, yeah, maybe hiding isn't actually what I want to be doing in life. Maybe there is something more genuine and more connected about.
Well, last week we spoke with Adrian, who's
Adrian
survived
Jones,
a heart attack, and he was the same thing. He's reaching out to people who have been similar scenarios where they've survived a heart attack, and many times they're closed down.
Yeah.
because they think maybe they're the only one, or they don't know, and it's just about reaching out to people that have similar experiences.
Well, I always love that line. There was a kid who was talking about depression one day on one of my shows, and I said, could you describe, because he's like you, he's an artist, so he describes things in visuals, like both of you do, because you're a photographer and you're an artist as well. And he said, depression is when you're encapsulated in a large glass globe and you can't reach out and touch anyone, and no one can reach in and touch you. And unless your heart and spirit shatter the globe from the inside, or you allow a family member or friend to shatter it from the outside, you could remain entombed, unable to touch, unable to feel, but going through life pressed up against the snow globe numb. Know what I mean? Folks, if you do get lonely, if you do get isolated, if you do feel depressed and sad, suicidal, or self-destructive, remember these kind of conversations are important, because there's always help there. There's always somebody who's not just, as Andrew said, listening, but there's also places you can go to serve, to watch incredibly inspiring, brilliant things happen on a healing basis all over the planet, and even in your local community, in your neighborhood, on your street. And it's important. It's important to be connected to both, the internal and the external, that'll help you with loneliness. Keep that in mind. What do you say that's the most important thing that we need to learn today from what Andrew said about millennials? What did you extrapolate from what he was talking about?
I mean, its simplest terms is, I think, be open.
Right.
And be willing to share with someone.
Yeah, and your emotions.
Connect with someone.
And connect and share your emotions.
Okay.
Exactly.
So one of the things I also want to say is, because we've been talking about sharing and being open and connecting, so what is one of the things that you're struggling with right now that you could use some help on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to start.
Sure, yeah. Always, yeah. Yeah.
Right? And if we're genuine about what we're experiencing, there always is a lot.
Right.
Even if people, this was a thing that I had to learn in high school and college, was the people who are outwardly seem perfect.
Right.
There's miles under the surface.
Yeah. Right.
Of what they're actually going through.
Icebergs.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of courage to be transparent about that.
Right.
So right now, one thing I would say is, like a lot of people of my age, this idea of there are these huge global issues, and I want to like fix it all, and just the frustration of like I'm not doing anything important.
Wow.
It's just that sensation, like doesn't matter, the cynicism, the resignation. So, like the way out of that for me is, how do I stay in communication with the people that I'm actually working with, and realize that my presence actually really does matter. And like if someone is, even just being a friend to someone,
right? Like
you have no idea how much that actually means to someone unless you're in communication. You ask them. So, yeah, I would say the pressure. The pressure to do everything all at once. Like that's something I struggle with. And one of the solutions for that is realizing how big of a difference it actually does make, even the little things that you do every day.
Right.
Well, there's two things that come to mind when you're talking about that. One is the ocean is made up of like a gazillion drops of water, right? So without every one of us, there would be no ocean. Right. In that metaphor that I'm probably butchering.
It was fine. You did good.
The other one is the starfish story, right? Have you heard the story of a man who's walking down, or a kid is walking down the beach, and he's picking up a starfish, and the beach is littered with starfish. And he picks one up and he throws it into the ocean. He picks one up and he throws it into the ocean. And this guy comes by and says, "What are you doing? You can't save them all." Child bends down, picks it up, throws it into the ocean. I saved that one. It meant the world to him.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just there's although we all want to save the world, doing something small is saving that person's world. Right,
exactly. And we never know what candle we're lighting on, what individual genius that we have learned to encourage and bring insight and wisdom to. and we never know, what they're going to wind up doing. Because I remember, standing there never thinking that I was going to see the kids I mentored again, and here we are, right? And so we learn as we go along. The other thing I just want to make sure that you both get to expand your work. Folks, money is important to young artists and mentors and teachers, and funding what really does help and solutioneer. I like that word from a kid. Everybody needs more solutioneers, right? A little kid said that. And one of the solutioneers is to fund local things that help make it easier, wiser, better. Because we can make it bitter or better. We can whine or we can shine. And when we're wise, we start to fund the local things on a local level that are going to help make it easier. You want to lower the suicide rate? Invest in local mentors, invest in local artists and business people that are doing things to make it a kinder medicine for the world. And support nonprofits that are not top heavy with administrations, sucking up all the energy where it's really actually needed on a street level. This is not to be meant as an attack on any institution. But sometimes, as Margaret Mead said, the smaller the group of committed individuals, for change, once empowered with funding and respect of community, can make miracles happen. And we know that. And so I just am very proud of you guys. I'm proud to know you young men, and people need to see that these young people in our community are actually doing stuff, right? Everybody has the option in their brain to read negative news. One of my comedy lines was, if they were to invent the light bulb today, the media would go, tragic and disastrous news for the candle industry today. Massive layoffs predicted, wax dips in the market, religious traditions are threatened. Well, build some positivity out there, folks. I don't need to know some of the politicians out there are doing evil. I think that goes sometimes without saying, And as Mark Twain said, sometimes the only honest politician is one who, once he gets bought, stays bought. No offense to the politicians. But you guys are great at doing what you're doing. What drives you? That's all I want to know, and then I'm done. I just want to know what drove you from 99 to now, and then what drove you from when you graduated from Johns Hopkins?
I mean, with the theory of today is connectedness. I mean, for me in 99 all the way to today, it's all about people that have given me a helping hand up. And so I've always felt incredibly fortunate that I was on the receiving end
Blessed.
of helping hand up.
Yeah.
And if I can give back in any way, and I try and give a hand up anytime I can,
right.
That's what drives. And the
right.
idea is, like what you were talking about, is if there's more stories of people helping people, there will be more stories of people helping people.
What a great line. It's almost a cartoon line, right. Folks, but
yeah. So,
simple.
Yeah.
Well, what drives me is realizing that we have all this fanfare. We have all these
right.
movies and video games and social media and eating out, whatever it is, and really people just want presence.
Right.
They just want to be connected to people. Mm. And there's a really great story about this businessman and a fisherman, right? And the businessman is talking to this fisherman on the beach, and he says, well, would you ever, it's your fishing business, like, would you ever want to expand this and make it something more formal and increase your income? And they kind of go through it, and the fisherman's like, well, why would I do that? And the businessman says, well, so you could have more money. The fisherman says, well, why would I do that? So you can go on vacation. And it comes down to, ultimately, the goal of having all this money in a successful company is just to have time to spend with your family and your friends and your community.
And go fishing.
And go fishing.
Well, so give us one more thing about if a millennial is watching this, let's keep it specific to them.
Yeah, good.
What would you say to them right now to wrap up our show?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I would say that your presence matters, and that listening deeply and listening from a place of openness is something that we need so much more than you realize. And that's available right now, today, to offer to anyone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm with you. Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice.
Good.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Andrew. That was awesome.
Well, yeah, it was great. You guys seem so much smarter.
And thank you for joining us on We Are the Remedy. Again, today we had Andrew Vargas
Delman
with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Go out there, smile, share a story, ask for help, smile at someone.
Engage and connect, folks. Be the medicine for a better world. The remedy.
The remedy. And again, now in theory, we're either cut or we're live or we're not live.
Okay, whatever.
So, you know.
Whatever. I'm like, whatever.